The Washington, D.C. based dance company Step Africa is bringing its high-energy show to the Detroit Institute of Arts. The group will tell the story of the Great Migration through the traditional art of stepping combined with paintings by African-American artist Jacob Lawrence. Take a look. Step Africa is also holding public workshops on the basics of stepping, something that yours truly might benefit from, given that I can never quite get all that together. Joining me now is the group's founder, C. Brian Williams, along with Michael Hill from the DIA. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah. So what a wonderful idea. We were talking before the show. I happened to get to New York last year to see Jacob Lawrence's tremendous work in its entirety about the Great Migration. I feel like it's something that people sort of know about in the back of their minds, but they don't really understand the magnitude of it in terms of its size and length, but then also the cultural significance.
Yeah, and its effect on the country. You know, not only African Americans, but it transformed, you know, the United States of America.
Sure.
You know, Step Africa is the first professional company in the world dedicated to the tradition of stepping. And this is our largest project to date. It's our signature work.
Yeah.
The Migration, reflections on Jacob Lawrence. You know, Jacob Lawrence being one of our country's most iconic, celebrated artists.
Yeah.
And I think we owe him such a huge debt because he documented in 60 panels the story of African Americans leaving the South for the North, places like Detroit, Chicago, New York City. And we're so glad to partner with the DIA, the Detroit Institute of Art, to actually bring 5 of those panels and this production on October 13th at the DIA.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like art is the right medium for telling this story because not only is it a literal story of journey and travel, but there's great imagery that attaches to it. And so the DIA being at sort of the center of this makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it's great to have this production here and to bring in the works from the Migration series. The panels will be on display in the African American galleries, which is really great to have this story of migration of African Americans moving to the North in places like Detroit, which was like an epicenter for that, and finding work here, and then Detroit being a predominantly black city, and having this great collections today, but having a gallery space devoted specifically to African American art and having the panels there, it's going to be really great.
Yeah, yeah. So talk to me about stepping. Again,
Right.
I'm not, this is not my thing. I can't get that together.
Are you sure we can do a little
can't get
work?
it together.
We are doing workshops all across
I was
the
going to
city.
say, I might need to go.
So Step Africa, whenever we perform, it's important for us to not only be on stage as we will at the Detroit Institute of Art, but also do lots of community engagement.
Yeah.
So we're going to do 5 community-based workshops teaching the tradition of stepping to young children.
Yeah.
There's actually going to be a free interactive workshop at the DIA on Thursday, I believe.
Yeah, Thursday at 1:45.
Where if you want to come try to learn to step with Step Africa,
Right.
you can. But this art form is a highly percussive, highly energetic dance created by African-American fraternities and sororities.
Yeah.
I myself, I went to Howard University, which is the birthplace of, I think, 6 other historically black
Of the black fraternities, right, yeah.
And I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. That's where I learned how to step. But what we're doing with this production is kind of taking stepping and really expanding on its artistic possibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, the opportunity to perform and respond to Jacob Lawrence's Migration series is like a huge honor. And
Yeah, talk about how you sort of put that together, the idea of telling this story through step.
well, when I first had the idea, South Africa's been around for 23 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been exploring the tradition of stepping and its connections to traditional African movement and dance and music. We have explored stepping's relationship to African American spiritual song and gospel music, but we hadn't dealt with the narrative. But as I grew up loving Jacob Lawrence's work, and just didn't believe I would have access to it. So the Phillips Collection, a wonderful museum in Washington, D.C., which actually owns 30.
They own half of them, right?
The odd number panels, they own those. I met the executive director, Dorothy Kaczynski, at an event, and she said, I said, I want to do something with Jacob Lawrence Migration Series. She said, okay. And it was that simple. And next thing you know, we had the access to this beautiful work. And of course, the Jacob Lawrence Foundation has been very gracious in supporting this. And to bring this to Detroit, I have to mention the Knight Arts Challenge.
Yes, right.
The Knight Foundation and their work to support artists all over Detroit and the country are really helping, are what enable us to bring this production to Detroit.
Yeah. Talk more about the DIA's commitment to African American art and how unusual that is among major museums.
Yeah, it's very unusual among major museums. We have specifically the galleries for African American artists, and we want to, showcase the artwork of our community, essentially. This is our community. African Americans make up a large portion of the city, the predominant part of the city, and we want to showcase that these works are not only being done by African Americans, but are important, have a place of importance that you can come to the gallery, and it's devoted specifically to African American artworks, and having the Jacob Lawrence pieces there. We also have the John Brown series that we will have on display as well. It's really great to have these works in our collection.
Yeah, and I've always been sort of moved by how the African collection at the DIA, which is also not insubstantial, sort of complements. I mean, they sort of work together, and you get that sense of relationship between the two.
Yeah, definitely. You get a sense of there's an interplay between the two.
Yeah.
And also, our African American collection, we have the galleries that are in the contemporary section. We also have an African American gallery that's in our colonial section as well, and it showcases African American works from that time period. So it kind of runs the full gamut of from Africa to African American earlier times to African Americans in contemporary work.
Yeah.
And what I love too about this partnership, not only do they have this production that will feature Jacob Lawrence's panels, on the stage, audiences, I think the DIA is open until 10 o'clock that evening, so you can come see South Africa at 7 p.m. and then actually go see the actual panels in the gallery. So it's a great opportunity. And you can get all this information on Step Africa's website, stepafrica.org.
Yeah.
We spell it with a K.
Right, I saw that in the prompter there. It was with a K, the proper way, right?
Exactly, you're right.
We've only got about a minute left, but talk more about the idea of starting this Step Africa. I mean, you talked about you having that experience in college, but the idea that it could be this institution that sort of just focuses on that nationally.
Well, South Africa is now one of the largest African-American dance companies in the world today, but it really has been a 23-year journey. So when I graduated from Howard, my first job was I moved to South Africa. Southern Africa. I moved to Lesotho. And I was there teaching small business skills. And I'll never forget, I was just teaching, I'm 21 years old. This is in 1991, before Nelson Mandela was elected. And I saw a little boy on the side of the road doing this movement that reminded me of stepping. I found out it was a South African gum boot dance. Which will also be seen in this production on Friday, next Friday, Friday the 13th. And it was there I said I wanted to create an organization that would connect stepping with the South African gumboot dance and see what else we could do with it. And I didn't know that we would be interpreting Jacob Lawrence's work.
Yeah, no, it's a tremendous development. Congratulations and thanks for being here.